Hello there, my glorious friends. It is good to see you again, and Merry Christmas to you all. Sorry about the video uploads, it's been one of those days. Yeah, Christmas arrangements, presents, you name it. You tend to be preoccupied with work, of course. But enough about that. If you read the title, it's time I explain my story and also some details in regards to so many movies, or in this case, fandoms, in relation to Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, DC, even the Attack on Titans, the fanbase group. So, without any further ado, why don't we get started, shall we? But before I start with the Star Wars, I'll start with a little story about me and my brother. Years ago, when we were still kids, when the Clone Wars came out, the series, me and my brother were just normal kids having fun, trying to be normal in this society of a world. But we felt lost and without a purpose. That was when Star Wars came out. We did see Star Wars, of course, but there were only clips and flashes. We had no idea the full story until the Clone Wars inspired us to take action against the story, which I'll explain soon. Since then, we met many of our favorite characters: Anakin, Ahsoka, Rex, even a few other Jedi favorites of our own, etc., etc. I know Obi-Wan's not among them, because let's just say we were like Anakin and Ahsoka, more rebels. And to be fair, life was somewhat good with the Clone Wars, especially despite it getting darker and more serious. Until tragedy struck, which not a day goes by that sometimes I wish I could have been there, as would my twin brother. It was 2013 of the season 5 of the Clone Wars. It's the final arc of its before the finale. So, someone bombed the Jedi Temple on Coruscant to make an example. Rioters, protesters, even those who thought the Jedi Order wasn't what it used to be, and to be fair, they were right. The Jedi weren't what they used to be, where they should have been peacekeepers. Instead, they become war dogs, mongrels, machines for a corrupt Senate's and Republic's purpose. One of them wanted to make a statement. In the end, it seemed to have worked. But once that assailant found out one of the accomplices was captured, that person panicked in a way, knowing that if she spilled the beans, that person would be caught. So he or she formulated a plan to frame Ahsoka for the crime, which in a way it worked. The evidence was overwhelming. Tarkin was very convinced that racist son of a hut. And what's worse, when that came, the Jedi Order and everyone else were 50-50. To be fair, Ahsoka didn't know who to trust. Only Anakin and the fans, including myself and my brother, seemed to think she was innocent. We seemed to see right through it. When she escaped, we were happy, and at first, me and my brother thought it was somebody who was our former enemy, but we were wrong. It was someone else, which the next episode, which I'll explain now. I still haven't forgotten that episode. The Jedi Order threw her aside like she was trash after being backed into a corner by Tarkin and the Senate. You couldn't imagine what Anakin and I were feeling, including my brother. So much trust, so much faith. And for what? Just to keep faith instead of tradition? It's no wonder why the Jedi Order was so unpopular these days, and why people no longer cared anymore. When we found out who the true person was, I was a little shocked and surprised at how foolish we both were. But what was worse, after Ahsoka was cleared of all charges, we were expecting her to come back. But you know what they said? There was actually a great trial. What a bunch of bull. There was a lot she had in her. She just never got a chance to show them after she left. And for the last 2 years, we were focused more on finding her. We didn't really care about anything else in Star Wars. Until we found her and we realized how selfish we were. The reason why we were looking for her was because of her story and because of her affiliation with Anakin. To be fair, we both felt uncontrolled. Until the greatest thing happened. Maybe the best thing ever. The sequel of the Star Wars series came out, the first episode, The Force Awakens. Despite it being flawed, it actually gave us some wonder and hope and reminded us what Star Wars was about. It basically brought us back from the brink, and we were able to reforge our lives better. And I want to say thank you to a better director, which I can find right now, right here, in about a few seconds from now. Do-dee-do-dee-do. La 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 la. Ooh do 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 do. Ah, JJM. JJ himself. Here you are. Have a gander on me. Honestly, I think this man is better out of the last two, which 2 years later, I can explain soon now. The Last Jedi. At first, we were hoping that The Last Jedi would probably fix up some of the flaws and maybe give us some answers. But we were wrong. Catherine and Johnson sabotaged the whole thing. Rigged everything out of balance. Made everyone look like an idiot and a fool. Ruined the characters' reputations, development, you name it. Tore everything into splinters. What's worse, it's made everyone, actor and actress, character, you name it, into a scapegoat. And after the movie came out, and after it ended, the fans were so disappointed and filled with resentment and anger. And those toxic idiots manipulated that and started going rampant. And Catherine, instead of making responsibilities, lashed out and fired back at everyone like they were the 1960s black people and Martin Luther King. And as soon as that happened, they rioted and lashed out at the actors and actresses that were scapegoats. But not before there were messages of hope that managed to fix some details. It took everyone a few months or a year to calm down. But although I guess it didn't matter anymore. The darkness infected nearly everyone we know. One of the YouTubers my brother and I know. His name is James YouTube. You know him as Empire Fan Production. Also known as Captain J, you name it. He was the one who inspired my brother to be a YouTuber, just as my brother has inspired me to become one as well. although I was more busy and focusing on trying to calm myself after the riots and pain. The darkness infected everyone, made into something they're not, lashed out, criticized, blamed everyone, even the characters. The Rose actress never should have deserved the pain she got, even the character. And after the rise of Skywalker came, it may not have been as perfect, but it wasn't as completely awful either. In fact, it was more of a giant FU to Catherine for everything she did to the sequel. She was hoping that it would redeem her, and then afterwards she would fuck us all in the process. Guess it's about time we fucked her back. JJ sabotaged that movie himself, but he left messages of hope, such as Skywalker, the Ghost of the Jedi, even a few cameo appearances. He left behind pieces of origins from the original and prequels just to fix things. He even made a few legend pieces. It wasn't much to redeem the Star Wars shows, Star Wars movies and that, but it was something. But it also sent a message to Catherine and to her pathetic followers and people who betrayed Disney as well, that Star Wars was still alive and still pretty much a threat. Which in some ways proved correct. Dave Filoni, along with other people who worked in Star Wars, managed to bring the Clone Wars back for one more hoo-ah. Even The Mandalorian, Book of Boba, Kenobi, The Bad Batch, even Andor. I'll admit one half out of the other are not as good, but it doesn't matter which one is perfect. What matters is they do their best and have fun. Fun! Do you judge people for that? Shame on you, toxic fans! Shame on you all! Which I'll explain to that next time soon. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the actors and actresses were doing their jobs. And some of the directors are actually trying their best. Everything they did was for us. Just as much as the Disney people now that I'll explain. After Star Wars got themselves hurt, Disney also became scapegoats themselves because of corruption. Everyone was being shouting at everybody. Even, let's say, when they threw in lesbian civil acts, a couple of, what's the words? Musicals, or even new actors or actresses into things like that prequel Lightyear. What did they do? Lashed out and hit everyone for what? Being lesbians? Different changes and that? Oh, come on, give me a break. What's the point of having fun and gambles if you're just want perfection? That's the point. Perfection is poison just as much as they become. In truth, it's not perfect, but it's more balanced now. More balanced. Encanto proved a lesson to me and my brother. It proved how flawed and how stupid we became, especially after me and my brother were banished from Lucamus Prime, and also how we were kicked off from Don Corleone's corrupt YouTube world. I know what you're going to say, I'm bullying those two, but in truth, everything they went through, and after seeing what their videos and comments are, has only proved that some of their opinions are flawed and all they wanted was perfection, and it brought nothing but misery upon themselves and projecting it on others. To be fair, I'm not better myself. What I am is just a simple person who just wants to enjoy and use my imagination. Just like my brother would too. After we were banished, I felt like making my YouTube videos to get revenge back at Prime. Until I came to Empire Fan Production and figured out that after he retired and became a semi-retired YouTuber, he was able to rebuild and was able to listen better. He was able to understand the fans after all these years. In some ways, despite the pain, he was able to rebuild himself and able to listen to me and to everyone else, just as much as you are now listening to me now. And I want to say thank you, and I'm sorry on behalf of my brother for all the pain he said to you, to AJ, and everyone else. Fans and Lord above, forgive me. And like I said, forgive me, my friends, for what I'm about to do. For what I will show, I guess it will say, I will sin. Lucamus Prime is a good person, but he lacks imagination and judgment. Because of how he's looking for perfection, he cannot see the wisdom of gambles and peace. And eventually, one of these days, he's going to get himself destroyed. And here's this one. Don G. Corleone, formerly known as Movie Lover 120. He was inspired by a former YouTube reactor, James YouTube, like me and my brother were now. Now he's fan production, he started his own works. And to be fair, I'm reading his record, he loves all types of fandoms. Godfather, Star Wars, Disney, everything, you name it. He is a movie critic and a fan of videos, of course. However, in truth, he's way too egotistical and way too much of a hard critic, and that's corruption enough. In other words, he doesn't see that some movies provide lessons in that, and what's worse, he's letting his emotions cloud his judgment, which I'll explain now. The next half. Avatar. The one that began everyone's careers a little bit, or made them an extra name for themselves. Extra cash, you name it. James Cameron's glorious work. I know, maybe I'm over-exaggerating, but hey. In truth, who says they can't have a little more of a crack fun? I found out a very interesting couple things too while I was out. Over here, you're going to need this just to show you some kicks. You recognize half of them, do you not? Sam, who also played as Mason in the Call of Duty, Zoe, Guardians of the Galaxy, that Columbia Assassin, you name it. Oh, and look at this. Kate Winston. Let me think. Where was she with James Cameron's work? Oh, that's right. The Titanic. The Titanic that basically helped her, made a reputation for herself. Just like Leonardo, what's his name? James Cameron may be a little egotistical, but he's not a complete asshole, even though he'll admit maybe it's because he just wants to prove himself. I don't know. Avatar 1 and 2 may not be perfect, especially the second one after so many delays, but it doesn't deserve the hate. It's not overrated, it's a lesson. I don't care if it gets the top review or a money extra. As long as everyone has fun, and as long as I have fun, and as long as I see how the environment, music, even the honorings of so much work, that's what makes me happy. But now I can see the fandom has gone so toxic. Which gives me to the Marvel and DC now. After the Avengers Endgame, which I understand, that was the conclusion to the Marvel Universe, especially after Stan Lee's passing. And to be fair, some people were thinking about retiring, James YouTube too. And I was a little disappointed, I'll admit, but I understand. Growing up with the people, like the actor who plays Iron Man, Captain America, you name it, it's like, I don't know. It kind of feels like they were a part of a family. And after Phase 4 came out, maybe it's a little confusing, but I found some shows and movies useful. Some, not all. And to be fair, I wanted to leave it all, but I just couldn't. Because I felt like I didn't want to abandon Stan's great work. So I chose to stay. Although I guess it's made me an enemy. But then there were changes in that which forced some people to retire, and after a few clingy decisions, what did they do? They rant and burn everyone and everything. They were just doing their jobs. I'll admit, maybe we hired the wrong person. Went a little too much. But try and get your head out of your ass. It's not perfect, but it doesn't mean you have to be overbearing. If Stan Lee saw what they were doing, both sides were doing, the people one side and the fans, he would be ashamed of us both. We are becoming no better of the villains. Which now I explain the next part of DC, Warner Brothers. Which I have a lot of evidence with. Let's see, Johnny Depp getting blown by his ex-wife for what actions he didn't do, but instead they just threw him aside like trash, taking the word of a narcissist. And of course, the replacement for Grindelwald, he did his best, but even he admitted that he couldn't hold the candle completely to Johnny. Sure, he was doing his job finely, but he was admitting it was career suicide. I wish people can just stop being so hateful. Because look at what we're doing now. After so many mistakes and failures, they rant, complain, and bitch about it like they were just like spoiled little immigrant kids. Look at them. Bullying actors and actresses. Disrespecting characters. Disrespecting directors who were doing their jobs and actually had more honor. And what's worse, even though they create alternative fandoms, half of them were pathetic and worthless. And not only that, they continue to complete it, and they're just it's just all they want is perfection. In other words, they broke all the rules in one book. I'm sorry, my friends. I know it's a lot, and I know it's feels like a rant, but it's the truth. We've fallen so low is that we wanted perfection, and in the end we just got blood. Blood that covered our eyes, and we lashed out like animals behind right here. Imagine if that panther was alive, and imagine that tears people apart. And even if they survive, do you think you would traumatize them? And to finish off with the DC, I know about James Gunn's involvement in firing the actor who played Superman and other things. But it looks to me, courtesy of a little evidence from this YouTuber. Hold on a second. Oh, here we go. I'll admit he may be a little flawed in that, but he's a better human. and a better man. Just to show you again. But like him and like Joseph, which I'll show you now, oops, my bad, my mistake. I know it's a mirror, but I'm sure you guys can figure out the mirror. Just look for the sign and you'll find him. Just reverse the words, you know. The first one he actually knew, found evidence that James spoke against the toxic fans and tried to defend himself because he knew that he was framed. Warner Brothers set him up. They wanted somebody to scapegoat him out of everything so they can save their skin. They could have taken responsibility and tried to fix the mistakes and to everything what happened with the Justice League series and everything else. Especially since I know that the director who only left was because his daughter murdered herself. And if that's the truth, you could have waited a few more months. You could have at least give them a chance. You find a way to fix some of the worst mistakes and you try to give them a chance. That's the job. And not just that, the fans, you're supposed to try and support. You can criticize them a little bit, but over rent and everything else and burning people in, that's just pathetic and mean. All right? And if the movie or show doesn't go, then you go for the next one and the next and the next and so on. You find something that actually that makes things worth living, all right? That's the role of being a fan, and that's the job. Joseph, my friends, everyone. I'm just exhausted, tired, and I'm just throwing everything out of my chest in this single video of the truth about everything. And to mention one more company, Attack on Titans. Oh yeah, one that was made from a Japanese person. He got hit pretty bad for making a story that 50-50 failed. And finally, he got hit bad. Even the anime too, actresses, you name it. Even English ones. We got because it's so low. Since when did people wanted power and perfection? Since when did we wanted absolute glory? We are too spineless now. But I know one thing. Joseph, everyone else, you guys are better than me. Just like how I'm more balanced. If you want to throw me out of your YouTube shows, go ahead. I won't stop you. But know this. Everything that I've been doing, I did for everyone. And I'm so proud. And nothing's ever going to change that. How I love my family and friends, even on YouTube. Well, this is about finished. I'll see you around, my sweetest friends. I have to go now. I have work to do later on. But I promise any questions will be on YouTube comments. May the force be with you all. And I'm sorry if I let you down. Goodbye.